Good morning, Ainsley. Vladimir Putin once more landed in eastern Ukraine ahead of the summit, and European leaders want a ceasefire before any talk of ceding territory is discussed, and President Trump has vowed the war must come to an end.
Will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be
be? Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences.
It's been a decade since Vladimir Putin last traveled to the United States. President Trump says if this initial meeting goes well, there could be another very soon.
There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. I would like to do it almost immediately, and we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself.
Now, fresh off a call with President Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in London today to meet with Britain's Prime Minister. Keir Starmer reiterated there can be no negotiations without Ukraine at the table. And a potential sticking point in the talks is the Donetsk region in eastern Ukraine. Since 2014, when the fighting began, Ukrainian forces have been using the city of Kramatorsk as a key logistics and command hub for its military along a fortified front. If this land is handed over to Russia, some fear it could pave the way for Putin to launch another offensive in the future. Another topic of likely discussion will be the fate of the tens of thousands of Ukrainian children that have been abducted by Russian soldiers over the course of the war, guys.
We're here maybe to give you the platform to apologize to the First Lady for your statements that you made about her possible connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
That. That's not going to happen.
AI is getting terrifyingly good. That's a raw footage. That's a raw killer client says it's the raw footage. Don't sleep on it. That's the raw footage. How do you get $100 bill that big? Good for you. Must be great being the president's son. Who left the bags of crack in the White House? No one knows. No one knows. It's the unsolvable problem. They just destroyed the evidence and the DNA on it. Who knew? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to cover all of this today, August 14th, 2025. What is all of this? Well, Hunter Biden made statements that were factually untrue. We'll talk a little bit about defamation, libel on today's show. You do have freedom of speech here. However, in this country, you don't have the freedom to libel and defame people when there are knowing fact. It's not an opinion when there's a fact basis to the absolute contrary. And when that fact basis has been brought to your attention. And Hunter Biden is giving the big middle finger to Melania Trump. And oh, baby, that is a dangerous game to play. Melania Trump has an entire graveyard of defamation suits at her back and has destroyed many smart and large organizations that have tried to slight her. And ladies and gentlemen, people that are way smarter than Hunter Biden, the smartest guy I know. Remember that. Hunter Biden's the smartest guy I know. Melania Trump threatens Hunter Biden with $1 billion false defamatory lawsuit. Shut it down! Bombshell FBI timeline exposes the political interference of a Clinton corruption probe as the sharks circle the Clintons. It's very interesting. The targets have moved from a judicial standpoint to the Clintons, sort of away from the Obamas, and have now hovered over the Clintons, not only in the Epstein case, but also in the Clinton Russiagate case. We're going to talk all about that today with the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the DOJ, Harmy Dillon. Yes, she will be back on our show. This is going to be a vindication show for people who had technical problems this week. This is going to be our vindication. This is our welcome back show. We've been testing with various individuals. Rick Crawford, he's a representative from Arkansas. He's also the head of the Intel Committee. He tried to join yesterday, and unfortunately, we had some rural Arkansas internet dial-up problems. We fixed those things. And Representative Daryl Issa, the king of oversight into the Clintons will be joining the program live as well. Now, Jillian Michaels has a very viral clip online. I've invited her on the show. She's texted me that she might be able to do it on her way to the airport. So this is me announcing it to my producers at the very first time. I know they love that. I know that Klein and Carol love it when I do this. They just love it. Yes, thank you. Actually, it should actually be the sad trombone. This is what's going on inside of ALX's head when he hears inside of poor ALX and Kara, who's our incredible booker on this program. You know, dun 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 dun. Oh, Benny live booked somebody and didn't tell us. Anyway, Jillian's doing a bunch of hits today, so I don't know if she can make it, but she said she'd love to join. So anyway, if you could reach out to Jillian, she's awesome. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. We just go and we rock and roll on this program. We go into the golden era, asking questions in the White House briefing room and causing panic. Panic on MSNBC. We can't wait to show you something. Jen Psaki lost her mind last night over us getting a chance to ask a question at the White House. It's freaking awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll show you that clip. It'll be our Salt That Lib of the day. Get your salt shakers ready. It's a golden clip, and you should go gold. Right now, the Fed is considering ending their extremely high and very damaging interest rates that are destroying so much prosperity in this nation and holding back the potential explosion and rocket ship of the American economy. Gold has been hovering around $3,400 an ounce the last couple of months, and it's poised for dramatic growth when there is another rate cut. So please join the Gold and Silver Summit from Advantage Gold on Wednesday, August 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern. Find out how and now why this is the time to buy gold. Text the word GOLD to 85545 to get free access to the Advantage Gold Virtual Gold and Silver Summit. You'll get actionable intelligence on how to help with dealing rising debt, how to hedge against unpredictable economic events, and diversify your IRAs and 401ks and retirement funds. Just text GOLD to 85545, GOLD to 85545. Data and message rates apply. Advantage Gold, go gold today. Gotta do, just off the dome, gotta do Jen Psaki Salt That Lib. I hope everybody has their salt shakers ready. This is really exciting. So, we asked about big balls at the White House. We also asked about, of course, the city of Washington, D.C. being a narco failed welfare state that is run by effectively terrorist gangs led by the mayor, who is herself a domestic terrorist, Muriel Bowser. I'll absolutely say it. The reason why I know this is because I personally witnessed it during the George Floyd riots, where Muriel Bowser wantonly painted Black Lives Matter and defund the police on the road in front of the White House. She did it. She posed with photos. They painted defund the police in front of a church that they burned down. They burned down the White House. There are structures on the White House grounds that they burned to ashes. Last I checked, I think they were still fixing these things up. It wasn't the White House itself, but it was property sheds, utility sheds. These are municipal parts of technically the White House ground. So they did technically burn the White House to the ground. So it's a terrorist activity. They were planning on murdering the president. Let me say that again. It's caught on video 1,000 times over, but including on my cameras, I have the footage. Maybe we'll find time to pop it up today. I might have to go hunt it down because it's a couple years old. I have the footage. I went and I interviewed these people. I said, what would you do if President Trump came out of the White House? And to a man and a woman, if you can really call them that, they said, because they look more like the orcs of Helm's Deep, but whatever. They all said, like, we want to kill him. That's what they said. It's a murderous terrorist organization fomented by Muriel Bowser, who's currently the mayor of Washington, D.C. So she oversaw it, she allowed for it, she fomented it, and she watched as it happened and cheered him on. So yes, effectively the city of D.C. is run by a terrorist organization. So I'm so thankful for what President Trump is doing. I watched the horrors with my own eyes. I was personally victimized by it. I nearly lost a child because of it. And I am just deeply, deeply thankful. I mean, I have very few like personal acts to grind. This one's personal to me. And so when we went to the White House, we asked about it. Now, the big balls question got a lot of play. But I'm telling you, it's a very simple explanation. And of course, every logical person will come to the same conclusion, which is that a young 19-year-old taking on 7 gangbangers, 7 youths, as President Trump would call them in big quotes, big balls taking on that gang, stopping them from assaulting and potentially killing a young woman, an innocent woman, and then taking the beating for her is a act of bravery and heroism that we rarely ever see in modern society. And he deserves the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's what I believe. Big Balls getting beat within an inch of his life and left bloody and left for dead on the side of the road. Thankfully, Big Balls is in recovery right now from his injuries. That's a unifying act that brought deep attention to this problem in Washington, D.C. and has inspired all of this. So yes, he deserves that. Would you have done what Big Balls did? I mean, a lot of people can sit back in their chairs and say, yeah. I mean, I can tell you, he's more of a man than me. You know, I'd be sitting there, like, I know these guys. Like, I'd be sitting there being like, well, I got kids at home. Like, I'm not going to leave them without a father. I can tell you, as a matter of fact, I would not have acted in the same way. But like, Big Balls is a hero. I'd have been like, watch, I am call the cops. Because I'm like well aware, just one knife, one stabbing, I'm gone. Right? So I have to weigh these things, right? Against like my children and their future and like leaving them without a father. Big Balls, much like Daniel Penny, much like many of these individuals who like take these things into their own hands, are true heroes in a sunken and fallen Gotham. And so they deserve to be honored. I am proud of them. I'm proud as a man to support them and to use every bit of my platform to tell their stories, right? They deserve to have their stories told. Now, we were very lucky last night that Jen Psaki decided to also tell our story in a hysterical freak-out meltdown live on MSNBC. Now, this is an incredible full circle, you could just call it a circle back moment for our show. Because Jen Psaki, we have spent countless, I mean, guys, everyone, producers, you know, how long have we spent watching Jen Psaki insufferably, like rolling through Jen Psaki press conferences? The tens of thousands of hours that we sat there ripping and making fun of Jen Psaki and wishing that we could get in there to ask a question. Now, of course, there was no way in God's green earth, not a snowball's chance in hell when pigs fly, that we would have gotten a chance to go to the White House and we would have gotten a credential to ask a question, even if we could have snuck into the room during a press conference. Jen Psaki would have only ever called on the 3 corporate media reporters in front of her. She would never have allowed a question from any alternative media or independent media. We're not the alternative media. We are the media. So we never got a chance to like get up in Jen Psaki's grill. But old Jen apparently was following along, wasn't she? Because she called us out by name yesterday on her show and had herself a little meltdown. So I apologize for giving this sort of like lead in to our Salt That Lib of the day, but it is such an exciting moment for me. Such an exciting moment for me. I mean, I don't know, Jerry, how many memes have we made about Jen Psaki? How many memes? Can we pull, like when we'll play the clip, can we pull like a few of them up out of the archives? Do we have some good Jen Psaki memes? How many times? How many nicknames? Peppermint Patty, Chucky, Mouth of Sauron. That's exactly right. Yeah. How many memes? How many times? Circle back Psaki. Whoa. Anyway, it was just this incredible circle back, full circle moment for us to finally get a chance to roast Jen Psaki, albeit not to her face, but still inside of the press briefing room. A delight for us, a Salt That Lib for the ages, a triumph for our channel and our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Jen Psaki having a hysterical meltdown, forcing Big Balls into her mouth. Live on MSNBC. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Salt That Lib.
All right, let's do another. Oh boy. Okay. Right-wing YouTuber Benny Johnson. Let's do this.
Nancy Pelosi has attacked the president for deploying the National Guard to the city, saying that it is to cover for his incompetence. Hillary Clinton has also attacked the president for securing the city of Washington, D.C. I'd like to get your response, follow-up to that. Given the heroic actions of a member of this administration just a few blocks from this building, will the president consider giving the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Big Balls?
Well, Benny, I have to hand it to you. That didn't disappoint with the insanity of that question. But first off, I mean, Nancy Pelosi is right. The deployment of the National Guard is definitely not about actually lowering the crime rate. That has been going down. It's about changing the subject. It's about normalizing military in the streets. It's about a lot of things. As for big balls, which I can't believe we have to say on a TV show, but here we are in 2025. I mean, what happened to him was horrible, and I wish him a speedy recovery. Everybody should. But the people who typically receive the Medal of Freedom have decades of public service or storied careers under their belts. They aren't a 19-year-old software engineer. So I don't see how he would make the nomination list. But then again, this is the Donald Trump presidency, so who knows?
How much fun was that? Ah, it's just great. Do we have any old Psaki memes? Were we able to get a few? Let's see. Do we have any old Psaki memes? Goodness gracious. Look what our cover images used to look like. Holy moly. Man, we've gotten better. Can you pop up that old cover image? Look at that. Wow. So this is when Jen Psaki pieced out. This is what our cover image looked like. Oh, no. Oh, man. We just want to thank all of you for helping us get better at this. Here's a really funny one. Here's Jen Psaki having her head explode from Peter Ducey. These are just classic old memes.
Reducing our dependence on foreign oil?
That's actually, I just outlined each of those specific scenarios and the range of discussions that we're having with each of those countries. I don't think anybody is advocating for Iran to continue.
Okay. Classic old meme, the old peppermint patty. You can't unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here we go. Oh, man, we haven't talked about Psaki in a while. And the final thing, and then we have some news to actually get to. This is actually a news program, but we just can't help ourselves. It's the best one. ALX is like, I might go see our, well, whatever. I think it's worth it. We'll try it. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best videos ever made in the history of the internet.
On this my shit, all the girls stomp your feet like this. Few times I've been around that track, so it's not just gonna happen like that, cause it ain't no
Circle back.
Girl, ain't no
Circle back.
Girl. Few times I've been around that track, so it's not just gonna happen like that, cause it ain't no
Circle back.
Girl, ain't no
Circle back.
Okay. Wow. What a fun role we've been on. It's been exciting. It's all been because of you. You won't find anybody, anyone anywhere in the wide reaches of the internet that is more thankful for the movement and for the audience, for the chat than this program. And we just want to say, like, a profound thank you. We do this because of you. We do this with the power that you give us and that we have together. And you direct, greatly so, like much of what we do on this program. We're constantly asking, we're constantly reading the chat and the sentiment, and we're going to where you say go, like Jasmine Crockett, AOC, and we're going deep into the heart of power and asking questions on your behalf. And we hope we make you proud. We're massive fans. We're massive fans of the current energy right now. It's been exciting. Good old Chucky. That's right. Good old Chucky. Okay, so we're back. We're back, baby. Back to the script. Sorry, guys. Just had to do a little Primrose trip down memory lane. That's just so funny. How'd that tweet do too, by the way? Everyone was saying that we triggered Jen. It was like so funny. It did good. How'd that do? Okay, all right. Almost 1 million views. That's great. Okay, fantastic. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, we out ya. First Lady Melania Trump puts a $1 billion bounty on the head of Hunter Biden, legally, over false and defamatory Epstein comments. Now, before you think like, oh, well, you know, of course she could never win something like this. It's America. You got First Amendment, you know, protection here. The Daily Beast has retracted and apologized for the exact same thing. Oh my goodness. Let's just pop over here to show you the seriousness of this threat. Daily Beast apologized and retracts whole article alleging that Melania Trump has a Jeffrey Epstein link. This is a massive backfire. Let's just read sort of the body that has been left in the wake of Melania Trump to show you exactly how serious this all is. Daily Beast took down an article on Thursday alleging a modeling agent contacted notorious sex predator Jeffrey Epstein and introduced Melania Trump to her husband, President Trump. The article, which detailed claims made by Michael Wolff, the Daily Beast podcast, who Michael Wolff can probably come get it as well, was replaced with an editor's note apologizing for any confusion. First Lady's lawyers contacted the left-wing outlet. After the story was published, the Beast received a letter from Melania Trump's attorney challenging the headline and the framing of the article, says the editor's note. After reviewing the matter, the Beast has taken down the article and apologizes for any confusion or misunderstanding. The original headline, body text, image URL, and article were all scrubbed from the website. Michael Wolff, he's like the creepy little like author. He looks like a literal potbelly goblin. I don't know why this guy would ever have any access to anyone or anything. But anyway, Michael Wolff, who President Trump last month blasted as a third-rate reporter, laughed at by even the scoundrels in the fake news, charged in an interview with the Daily Beast podcast Saturday that Melania was very involved in Trump's relationship with Epstein. She's introduced by a model agent, both of whom Trump and Epstein are involved with. She's introduced to Trump in that way, says Wolff. Epstein knows her very well. The author has drawn heavy skepticism from journalists in the past. Wolff is a shoddy, dishonest journalist, and his book has been read with suspicion, says left-wing journalist Ajit Hare in the New Republic, arguing that Wolff clearly plays loose with the facts, and now it looks like he may have some real problems on his hand. Because Melania is serious about these lawsuits. Melania has won, actually, multiple lawsuits, as has President Trump. They're on an absolute tear. Alex, in the first term, I think Melania won a defamation suit against the Daily Mail. Now, what's going to happen, what happened here at the Daily Beast is the lawyers say, retract the article, take it all down. This is clearly defamatory, and the way you prove that it's defamatory is you must prove malice. How do you prove malice? You prove that somebody is knowingly printing false things about you. So you present the facts. This is how they normally go. You present the facts. You give them an opportunity to retract and apologize, and the matter is settled. I believe Melania has actually brought these cases forward and has won huge. Here we go. This is from 8 years ago. Melania Trump accepts Daily Mail damages and apology in libel case. First Lady paid damages and legal costs in the $3 million suit by the UK's paper, claiming that she provided services beyond simply modeling. So they called Melania Trump a prostitute. That's what they did. And they paid dearly for it, millions and millions of dollars. And so these kind of things can and should be won by the First Lady. And so Hunter Biden, boy howdy, Hunter Biden's in it today. Let's read. First Lady Melania Trump is putting Hunter Biden on $1 billion notice over what she claims are false and defamatory and disparaging and inflammatory statements made about her, demanding he immediately remove and retract the content and issue an apology or face legal action, Fox News Digital has learned. Fox News Digital exclusively obtained the letter that Alejandro Brito, attorney serving as litigation counsel for the First Lady, sent to Hunter Biden and his attorney Abe Lowell. Brito demanded that Biden immediately retract false and defamatory and disparaging inflammatory statements about Ms. Trump, which were contained in a video interview with Channel 5, Andrew Callahan, who posted on YouTube early in August. Fox News Digital reached out to Channel 5 for comment and did not receive a full response. Failure to comply will leave Mrs. Trump with no choice but to pursue any and all legal rights and remedies available for her to recover overwhelming financial and reputational harm that you have caused her to suffer. In the video interview titled Hunter Biden Returns, earlier in August, the former son claimed Epstein introduced Melania to Trump. The connections are like so wide and deep. Biden also claimed that Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania, and that's how Melania and the First Lady and the President met. These are false, disparaging, defamatory, inflammatory statements, extremely salacious, that have been widely disseminated throughout various digital mediums, Brito wrote. Indeed, the video has since been republished by various media outlets, journalists, and political commentators with millions of social media followers that has disseminated this defamatory statement therein tens of millions of people worldwide. Brito added, consequently, you have caused Ms. Trump suffer overwhelming financial and reputational harm. Brito says that Biden's source for the false statements is a serial fabulist, Michael Wolff, whose lies are published by the Daily Beast in an article Melania Trump very involved in Epstein scandal. Following the receipt of our cease and desist demand letter a week ago, the Daily Beast issued an apology to Ms. Trump and retracted the false and defamatory statements contained in the article by deleting it in its entirety. Despite this, you have unjustifiably relied on Mr. Wolff's false, defamatory, disparaging information and statements about Ms. Trump to maliciously elected to publish them. Brito warned that Biden that he lacks any viable defense and overwhelming reputational financial harm First Lady to suffer. The timing of this video is evident that it underscores the actual malice behind the decision. This is what must be proven. In a defamatory case, you must be proven that you are knowingly publishing false statements. Given your vast history of trading on names of others, including your surname, talking to Hunter Biden here, for your personal benefit, it is obvious that you published these false and defamatory statements about Mrs. Trump in order to bring attention to yourself. Oh boy. Brito demanded that on behalf of the First Lady, Biden immediately issue a full retraction of the video and all other false, defamatory, misleading statements about Ms. Trump in a conspicuous manner as they were originally published. Oh boy. And then he says that if you do not comply with the above by August 7th, 2025. Okay, August 7th. Well, that would have been a week ago? Okay, yikes. All right. Then Ms. Trump will be left with no alternative but to enforce her legal and equitable rights to expressly reserved and are not waived, including legal action over $1 billion in damages. You are on notice. Holy cannoli. Source close to the matter told Fox News Digital that Biden did not comply with the request set as deadline. The source said Biden and his team leaked the letter from the First Lady's attorney to a friendly reporter and shows how deeply concerned they are about Hunter's serious liability for spreading defamatory lies. Goodness. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and see how Hunter Biden has responded to this. Here's Hunter Biden's response to the letter that was published. Let's go.
Presidential litigation has arrived. It's lawsuit time. In my hand is a legal demand letter addressed to Mr. Hunter Biden from the First Lady of the United States, demanding a retraction of Channel 5's video called Hunter Biden Returns, in which Mr. Biden here makes some speculative comments about the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein, Melania Trump, and Donald Trump.
Okay, well, they knew each other well. They spent an enormous time together. According to his biographer, is that Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania. That's how Melania and the First Lady and the President met.
Really?
Yeah.
Epstein made the intro.
Yeah, according to Michael Wolff.
Yeah.
And so I only can go by what people are saying, and I don't know.
He didn't make these claims out of nowhere. They come from another journalist named Michael Wolff, who is a biographer that actually spoke to Jeffrey Epstein. But now here we are. And I've got $1 billion document in my hands because Mrs. Trump is seeking $1 billion in damages if we don't take the video down and if Hunter here doesn't issue a formal apology to Mrs. Trump. So now we're here maybe to give you the platform to apologize to the First Lady for your statements that you made about her possible connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
That. That's not going to happen.
Donald Trump has won a series of laws. I mean, he's on a generational run when it comes to all of the lawsuits that Trump has won. I mean, Klein, do we even have all these loaded? They're like, maybe we can just blister through them. These are not idle threats, man. President Trump scoring $36 million settlement. Donald Trump with a $15 million settlement. ABC News, the AP, CNN, CBS. There are so many different settlements, even from large social media platforms like Meta, $25 million from Facebook to Trump. Wild. Go from deplatforming him and libeling him to paying him millions of dollars. They should call it the fake news wing of the Trump presidential library. So not only has Melania won these cases, but Donald Trump is on a generational tear against much larger, much more elite, and much smarter legal teams than Hunter Biden has. Holy smokes, we got to see the temerity of Hunter Biden's legal team over the last couple of years. It's not good. It's not great. Biden's own DOJ was about to put Hunter Biden away for life. Jonathan Turley on Fox News saying, careful about this one. You could be very cooked here. Let's go.
Here's the statement on behalf of the lawyer for the First Lady. Failure to comply. She wants him to retract the statement, okay? Failure to comply will leave Mrs. Trump in no choice but to pursue any and all legal rights and remedies available to her to recover the overwhelming financial and reputational harm that you have caused her to suffer. They call this extremely salacious. Retract it now. And I think Hunter Biden was on a YouTube show just yesterday, perhaps, and he said, in response, blank that. Does he pull the words back?
Well, there's in the notice letter they said they'll be seeking $1 billion, and I can say right now without discovery he doesn't have it. That's a lot of paintings that he would have to move, and their value has gone down dramatically since his father left office. The fact is that the First Lady has succeeded in getting multiple news outlets to retract this story. They really go after the source, this author named Wolf, who's been repeatedly challenged in terms of the accuracy of things that he has written about the Trump family, the Trump administration. Hunter Biden is known to be in tough financial straits. He was suing people left and right, including for defamation, as sort of a scorched earth approach when his father was president. He's a ban to pay his.
We apologize, ladies and gentlemen. A little breakdown in the clip at the end there. But you get the point from Jonathan Turley, the same point that we're making here, that they're not effing around. This is not something that they ain't playing. Now, it's also a massive loser when it comes to if there's a hill to die on, this just ain't it. CNN out with some very interesting new Epstein polling here. Interested to see what the chat has to say. And I'm also very interested to see what our next guest has to say. Obviously, he's somebody who we're very happy to have on, and we're proud to have him back, and we're thankful for the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, Rick Crawford, who will be joining us in just a minute after an unfortunate technical glitch yesterday. But ladies and gentlemen, here's CNN out with new Epstein polling. Rock and roll.
I would say that this is, from at least a political point of view, quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
This has been for 3 weeks now.
Exactly. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between Taros and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger.
So out of sight, out of mind, maybe, is applying here a little bit. But has it impacted, have you seen numbers that have this has impacted Trump's popularity, favorability, anything?
No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point, he was at 37%. So he's 7 points higher, very much in a different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. And more than that, among Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base. And when it comes to that center of the electorate, he's basically holding on there. And his overall approval rating, 44%, is pretty gosh darn good for him, considering where he was at this point in term number one.
What do you think?
There it is. Now, the opinion of this show has never changed. we're glad that the DOJ is doing interviews with Ghislaine Maxwell and is talking through how to release further evidence, demanding that the courts release the grand jury testimony and so on. There are judges that are blocking that. It goes back and forth. We're like a dog with a bone. I mean, we haven't ever changed our opinions on this program, but if this was to be used, as we warned, as an attack vector against President Trump, then it has failed, according to the numbers. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't want you to fail. We want you to have an excellent future here in this great country. American Financing can help you do that by getting out of debt. Debt is, of course, the number one crippling element that prevents you from having a great American future. And who can be blamed? Groceries, gas bills piling up. The amount that is spent on just day-to-day life over the past couple of years, skyrocketing. Remember the DNC putting up that chart thinking they would own Trump, showing that they were the ones who obviously inflated everyday expenses out of control. The point is that you should get out of debt. You can use the equity in your home to do that. American Financing can help you do that today. Get you to make those payments and get out from under that millstone of debt. They're saving their customers an average of $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 raise per year. It's fast, it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. Call now before it's too late. 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net/. All right, ladies and gentlemen, back by popular demand is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee that we're really excited to talk to. Who knows what they did to try and break our connection yesterday with the great Rick Crawford from Arkansas, but we're proud to have him on right now. Let's rock and roll with the chairman of the Intel Committee. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I always find it so strange whenever we have a big-time guest on to talk about touchy subjects or interesting things. There's always some type of technical glitch, right? I'm gonna say it's the communist Chinese. That's what I'm gonna say.
I'm gonna agree with you 100%. Yeah, think I'm on the radar.
I bet you are. I bet you are. You're from the great state of Arkansas. We're dear friends with Sarah Sanders. You have a spectacular state, and a state that obviously has some really good members of Congress from it. We're big fans of Tom Cotton and the people who are there doing great work. It seems like an honest and straight shooting state.
Yeah, pretty much. Here's the interesting thing about Arkansas, punching way above our weight. We have every member of our congressional delegation is the chairman.
Is that so?
Yeah, I don't think that's ever happened before. Certainly not in Arkansas, but I don't think if there's any state anywhere. And I remember when I first came into Congress, Texas had, 7 or 8 gavels, but that's not their whole delegation. It was just in the House. There was maybe 5 that had gavels, which was a pretty big deal. So Texas had a lot of influence, but our entire state now is a chairman. So that's good for Arkansas.
Yeah, well done, man. What a power center, and what a change from just a few short decades ago when the Clintons were running the entire state.
Yeah, we were the last southern state to get the memo, but when we did, we did, and it really happened in 2010. That was a tectonic shift for Arkansas.
Yeah, obviously you got to be extremely busy on the Intel Committee. There are so many questions about intelligence and gathering, and I want to get to so many things on Russiagate and on Hillary Clinton's culpability there. And I think there's so many unique cross sections actually being from Arkansas. But I want to just start, since we did just run that Epstein polling, and since the Epstein question, Melania Trump is suing over it. They're obviously, I think, going to win it's going to be a monster defamation suit against Hunter Biden over it. The question that I had for you is about Jeffrey Epstein and his ties to Intel.
Yeah.
And I think this is, sort of at the heart of the issue, actually. And we know that Jeffrey Epstein had ties to the FBI and potentially the CIA. We know the Alex Acosta famous line here. And we know, obviously, that Ghislaine Maxwell's family had ties to Mossad. And so, through her father, Robert Maxwell. And so, given everything that's happening right now, can you perhaps elucidate for us just a little bit? Like, is there any fact pattern that you have discovered or that you know about of Jeffrey Epstein's ties to the intelligence community?
Well, we haven't seen anything that has been brought to our attention. But what I would say is that we're in a position, if we do, and we can go talk to the CIA about this. They've not brought it to our attention. It's swirling, in the public sphere. Everybody's sort of speculating about this, but we've not seen anything, have anything brought to our attention at this point to suggest that that might be true. If it ever gets to that point, then most certainly we're going to pursue that. And if that means, either through oversight or hearings, whatever is in our purview to do to examine that and run that to ground, we would certainly do it. But at this point, we've really not seen anything concrete that bears that out. So, staying in our lane in the Intel Committee, we, obviously there's a whole lot of stuff going on there with regard to DOJ, and the Judiciary Committee has authority there. But as it applies to Intel, we're always, antennas up and listening and paying attention. But so far, we've not seen anything or had anything brought to our attention that warrants any further investigation. If it does, we're ready to go if that presents itself.
Yeah, it just seems like a perfect clandestine honeypot operation with so many princes and prime ministers and sultans and world leaders, and it just seems like it would be an obvious op if you were looking.
If it were, it would be on a scale that we've never imagined before because of, as you mentioned, the number of people that are named is staggering. Now, I would also say, this is a great thing about being in America. I mean, you're, the presumption of innocence. And so all the talk, it's interesting and it makes for fun dinner conversation and things like that. But the reality is until you see actual evidence and until, we have to prove guilt, not prove innocence. The accused doesn't prove their innocence. The accuser has to prove their guilt. And we've just not seen anything at this point that would tell us he was an asset for this agency or that agency or whatever. If we get to that point, we're most definitely ready to go, but we haven't seen that yet. So at this point, it seems to be, I'm not trying to dismiss, sort of the public, open source intelligence, if you will, that exists out there, because open source is also a very valuable source in many cases. In fact, any intelligence agency will tell you that open source intelligence is extremely valuable. But we haven't seen anything tangible that ties any of them to intel agencies at this point.
Sure. What I think many people lean on is the Alex Acosta, and we've had many people who've worked with Alex Acosta on our program. We've had people who are friends of him and that say that he's not lying. He wouldn't be a liar, right, in saying that he was told to back off Epstein in this confounding and bewildering federal move that has no precedent in the year 2008 and 2006, 7, and 8, where Jeffrey Epstein was just allowed to walk free in the state of, from federal charges, and was given a slap on the wrist and the ability to exonerate everybody who's with him. This is actually what Ghislaine Maxwell's arguing right now. And Alex Acosta says he worked for Intel, so he's told to back off. He worked for Intel. So we've explored that, and so that just seems to be one of the main hooks that this hangs on. Perhaps you could help us. Have you ever subpoenaed the CIA to say, hey, listen, we want all the Epstein documents? Would you be in favor of that?
No, we haven't. We certainly have the authority. I don't think that requires a subpoena. I think it just requires, the kind of oversight relationship we have currently with the CIA is to just say, hey, we'd like to know if there's anything, and I'm certain we can do that. And I can tell you this, that there's a sea change taking place at the CIA under Director Ratcliffe versus previous directors. And so, I can't speak for Director Ratcliffe, but if we have evidence brought to us that suggests that there's a there, then we certainly would be able to go to John Ratcliffe and say, hey, can you help us out? We want to run this to ground, find out what, if there's anything further to know here about this and what's being, speculated on in the open source.
Yeah, because you would be in favor of that. You would be in favor of.
Sure. I would say though that I don't think it requires a subpoena. I think it's just sort of under a previous administration, it probably would have. But under this administration, this administration has been very transparent and committed to transparency. I don't think it's something that we would have to entertain.
The transparency has been astonishing and almost bewildering. I almost can't handle the amount of disclosures that happen on a near daily basis. And you must be one of the busiest men in all of Congress, because every single day there is a new intel bombshell for the manipulation of American intelligence in order to sabotage the will of the American people, which by definition I think is treasonous and is seditious conspiracy. That's what Stephen Miller calls it.
Yeah.
Given, I think maybe we can jump down into the details, but given the totality of what we've learned about Hillary Clinton, the Steele dossier, the intel community, and how they handled that in 2016 and beyond, where is your committee on review of this? So many members of Congress come on this program, bang their fist, and then say, you got to ask the intel committee. So here we are.
Yeah. So no, what we did was, I mean, in fact, over the last 7 years, I've been trying to get our documents returned to us. That the Russia hoax report that we did on that particular ICA, that was a year-long report on an ICA that took less than 3 weeks to produce. Typically, those ICAs take anywhere from 9 to 12 months to produce on something so big and overarching. But they did it in 3 weeks. We took a year to do a report on a 3-week study, and then they wouldn't give it to us. And so we finally got it. And what I ended up having to do was to essentially write a letter to President Trump saying, hey, can we have our document? And he said, yeah. And I think probably within 12 hours of him receiving that letter, we got the document. And so we got it. DNI Gabbard calls up. She says, hey, do you mind if I come over and read it? So she comes over to our secure space and reads it. And she says, it's worse than I expected. And like, yeah, it is really, it's really bad. And she said, would you object to us doing a classification review and possibly declassifying this for public consumption? And they have the authority to do that, and we don't. But she asked, can we do that? It's your document. Can we do that? So she did that. She did the classification review, and it came back pretty clean. You've seen it. It's about a 44-page document with about 330 odd footnotes. It's not the easiest thing to read. It's not just like reading 44 or 45 pages, because you've got to flip back and forth between these very detailed footnotes and things of that nature. So I thought they did a fantastic job, observed the appropriate protocols with regard to sources and methods and things like this. But I think it was an essential first step in clarifying what actually took place in the Russia hoax, number one. Number two, this was a huge gesture to the American people that says we need to restore faith in our government, but specifically in the intelligence community, because I don't want to broad brush it here. IC gets beat up a lot. This is a lot of the reason for it. But the reality is there are some good people there. There are, in fact, most people there are there for the right reasons. The problem that we ran into is that you had a cabal of middle management and senior executive service and appointees like John Brennan, Comey, Clapper, and others who conspired to do this 3-week-long ICA that had to come out post-election day, but prior to Inauguration Day. So the thing was commissioned in December and was released before Inauguration Day. And President Obama essentially commissioned this report. John Brennan, who is an analyst, used 5 willing accomplices. There were others that had dissenting views, and they were summarily dismissed. You can't play here because you're not willing to go along with this narrative. So he had 5 willing accomplices at maybe the GS-13 level, GS-15 level, or whatever. Well, here's the problem. Those people are still working there. That's what we have to address. Now, can we get John Brennan? Did he commit a crime? We're going to find that out. And I have, there's been criminal referrals to the DOJ, and we're gonna find out. But the thing about it is, they're saying, well, it's a statute of limitations issue. Understand completely, except that an ongoing conspiracy really that statute of limitations doesn't apply, because this is an ongoing conspiracy. So therefore, they're going to have a hard time evading that. But there has been criminal referrals on a number of people involved in that particular ICA, and there's other things there. And I particularly point you to page 17 of our report.
It's on screen. It's on screen right now. It's on screen right now, Mr. Chairman. We're navigating to it right now, page 17, and you can reference it, and it'll be on screen.
Yeah, there were some things about Hillary Clinton that are just egregious. Doesn't scratch the surface. And here's the other thing: it's the idea that the Russians wanted Trump to win. It's clearly a fabricated narrative. If anything, they preferred a president, Hillary Clinton. And here's why, because they had so much D-ROG on her that she was a soft target of manipulation. There was so much that they had on her. So the question you have to ask, if they had all this information on her, why would, if they wanted Trump, why would they have not released all that derogatory information on her prior to Election Day, if in fact they were supporting a Trump election? And number one. Number two, if there was collusion between Trump and Russia, why was there no evidence of him asking for a release of that D-ROG that existed on her? I mean, none of that makes any sense. And so I would encourage people, it's out there in the open source. It's available for media to consume and for everyday Americans to consume. That was the whole point, was to create a level of transparency that the American people deserve. And it's there for you to read. So go ahead and read it, and then you can form your own opinions. But I can tell you that in my mind, the Russians had no preference for Donald Trump at all. And if they had a preference, it clearly points to Hillary Clinton.
So I want to return here to page 17, which is just absolute bombshell. So we have, and Klein, this is not page 17.
Yeah, that.
There we go.
There we go. Yep.
All right. So here's page 17. You talk about how Hillary Clinton had extraordinary and alarming health problems, and that it had a serious negative impact on her election prospects, and that she was really spiraling. So this is and then that Russia was looking to exploit this potentially.
Right.
I think this would make a lot of sense. How did you? Was this something that was? So this is something that your committee determined based on interviews,
right? There was a lot of information that we had for a year-long investigation into their ICA, and this is what we were able to come up with through various sources and interviews and so on. And again, the whole point of redactions is to protect sources and methods and personally identifying information, things of this nature. So you can see some redactions on there, and want to be careful and conscious of the fact that we don't want to burn sources and methods. So the information is out there. I'm not going to comment as to sources and methods, but here's the information that you can see that the Russian agencies were what they believed. See, and a lot of people will say, well, they didn't, that's not true. They didn't have it. It doesn't matter if it's true or not, if the Russians believed it and were prepared to act on it. And if they believed it and had it in their possession and could have used it to their advantage to elect a President Trump, as the Democrats have asserted, why did they not? And the question is, by this page alone, you can see that they probably were withholding that so that they could use it on the other side of a Hillary election and manipulate her for their own purposes.
It makes a ton of sense. It also makes a lot of sense when you read through the now declassified annex of the Durham report, and you're able to see the entire Russian hacking and Steele dossier plot, and you're able to see everything from CrowdStrike doing media control to the FBI pouring oil on the fire, as it says there in the emails. And this follows your reporting right here, that the SRV possessed campaign email discussing a plan approved by Secretary Clinton to link Putin and Russian hackers to candidate Trump in order to distract from the American public the Clinton email server scandal. That's exactly what the emails show. And it shows that Leonard Bernardo, the main lawyer for the Open Society Foundation, George Soros connected, was critical in actioning all of this. And so I guess that begs the question, what does this say about the DNC email hack?
Well, so the Durham Annex validates this.
Yes.
So this is not
to the letter. Yes.
Right. This is not just our reporting based on, our staff doing that intensive year-long review of that, politically driven ICA. No, this is also validated from a separate source. The Durham Annex basically corroborates everything that's said here. And you think about this, go back to when Durham first came out with his report, there was no classified annex released to the American people. So the Democrats were getting on board saying, okay, well, Durham didn't find anything.
Yeah.
Well, Durham didn't find anything that he could release to the American people. But now fast forward to 2025 and the Durham Annex is released, and it corroborates everything that our staff found in the course of their investigation from a separate source that the Democrats back then, when it was being talked about after the completion of the Durham report, that they were like, okay, see, nothing to see here. Well, now they're singing a different tune.
Was there even a hack of the DNC? Or did somebody inside of the DNC, for whatever their reason, like leak this true information? I mean, do you believe that the emails are real that were leaked?
Well, so it's quite possible. I mean, look, we've done what we think we should have done, and that is to request our report. It was reviewed appropriately for classification and then released publicly so that the American people could form their own opinions. Because in spite of all these years, there are still people, and you can put this in evidence in front of them, that still believe what CNN spun, what Comey and others spun. They still believe it. And here's the evidence from multiple sources that prove that was wrong. And so the American people, we have been subjected to a political hoax like no other in history. I mean, you can go back through, political hoaxes and political chicanery for decades, since time began, and nothing compares to this. This is unbelievable.
Yes. I just want to say, like, well done. Like, having the rock ribs to like live through this and know that all this was classified, all the truth was classified when everyone was saying the opposite, and not go insane. I would have gone crazy. And I'm just
knew it for 8 years.
And so did the president. Yeah.
Right. And that's why he didn't delay when we asked for the documents. He said, yep.
Well done.
12 hours later, we have.
Well done. I want your take on this in conclusion. Can you please classify what you believe the Steele dossier actually was? Based on our reading, and Mr. Chairman, I just went to community college. I don't claim to be a particularly smart person, but based on my reading of it and based on my knowledge about the Steele dossier, this was a piece of material that was created by Russian spies through a man who's working for and on the payroll of sanctioned Russian oligarchs, Christopher Steele. This was intended in order to deceive and in order to kneecap the American public. It is, by every definition, Russian disinformation. And it was written in a way that was truly using foreign disinformation to commit an espionage almost on the American public.
Right.
And to kneecap a U.S. president elected.
Right. Yeah.
And so it seems like by every nature, a seditious and treasonous document. I mean, and truly scandalized that it is listed in these annexes as the original source material to launch these investigations and the predicate for the ICA. But I'll get off my box here. Please, you're the expert. Like, how do you classify the Steele dossier? Should that be the key piece of evidence when brought forward in prosecutions?
So a couple of things to unpack. Number one, Brennan said that the Steele dossier had no bearing on the ICA. In fact, it was foundational to the ICA.
Yes.
Number
yes.
one. Number
yes.
two, Steele dossier was fabricated. It was an op. It was paid for by the Clinton campaign. Steele dossier, Christopher Steele was he was discredited. He was known to be not a reliable source, but he was valuable in that he could collect some information, and then on the back end they could say, well, he had been a confidential informant or whatever it was, a source for various intelligence agencies, which ought to tell you something about the intelligence agencies under people like Comey, under the FBI, because he was their source. That ought to tell you something about the FBI under previous direction, that they were willing to take a discredited individual and take his information because it was valuable to them from a political perspective, how they could shape a narrative. Then the second thing to remember on that particular one is that they used the media. So what they did, they put this out to the media, and then the media reports it, and they go, oh, as if they didn't know. Oh, the media is reporting this, we better investigate. So they used the media. And now, look, I'm going to say, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they were unwitting, but they weren't. I mean, these people on the inside, they've got contacts in the media. They know how to drop stuff for effect and get it out there. So the media were not unwitting accomplices in this whole deal. They found a source that it was Yahoo, I believe, is who they leaked it to initially. And Yahoo goes with it. And the next thing you know, every legacy media outlet in the country is going, what about it? What about it? And the FBI, oh, well, this is really bad. We better investigate. So it was planted, that seed was planted to sprout, and it did, for the effect of spinning the narrative on Russia collusion that Trump is an asset of Vladimir Putin.
Mr. Chair,
it persists, and it's a travesty, it's a hoax, and enough is enough. That's why we did what we did. We got to get this out there, and the American people need to know the truth.
Mr. Chairman, very briefly, because you're handing off to the great Daryl Issa, who's up right after you, but I'd love to have you hand the baton to him. What culpability do the Clintons have here, in your estimation?
Well, so I'm not an attorney. There have been the criminal referrals have been made to DOJ, and I think and under FBI Director Patel and AG Pam Bondi, I feel comfortable that the full weight of the judicial system will come down on those bad actors. We've already seen that the precedent of having been a president or a first lady is over. When they raided Mar-a-Lago looking for what? We don't know. They basically said former presidents, they just like Adam Schiff, no one's above the law, even you, Adam Schiff. So another subject, and love to come back and talk to you about that.
They were looking for your documents, Mr. Chairman.
100%.
That's what they were looking for. They were looking for your report, Mr. Chairman.
And if we're going to do that, if we're going to raid Mar-a-Lago, then all bets are off.
Yep. Well done. Everybody needs to go and follow immediately the great Rick Crawford. He's from Arkansas. He's just one of those spectacular members of Congress who just puts his head down and isn't about like the flair and the fame. He's about like getting the work done. He's the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. He's from the great state of Arkansas. And boy, howdy. Got to tell you, I hope that you're back soon, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, Benny. Thanks.
Godspeed. Right away to the great Congressman Daryl Issa, who I have a feeling is pretty well versed on talking about Clinton crimes. Let's go. Congressman, welcome back to the program. We had the chairman of the Intelligence Committee just on, and he was saying, yeah, the Clintons really need to be looked into for their crimes here with the Steele dossier, something that you have, well, quite frankly, made a career on, looking into the Clinton crimes. So the table is yours, Congressman. Where do you see the landscape right now for Bill and Hillary Clinton?
Well, let me open up by saying that Chairman Crawford did something that is very difficult. He has access to a tremendous amount of classified, very sensitive material on a daily basis. And from my time serving on that committee, to ever go publicly and talk responsibly but appropriately is difficult. Something that the other person you mentioned, Adam Schiff, didn't do. Adam weaponized the committee. He used it to get Devin thrown off of it. He alleged all kinds of things, and he made outright false statements. And now he's my U.S. Senator. On the other hand, Rick is, like you said, he's keeping his head down. He's doing his job. And when he comes on, he says it's the material appropriate has been referred to the Department of Justice for appropriate action. And you couldn't be more accurate than that. This is a prosecution decision that has to be made based on the ability to bring a credible case for a jury's consideration. And that's what I want to say, because it's a balance. It's not, can you get a conviction against Hillary Clinton? You might never get a conviction against some of these high, exposure people, simply because somebody will get on that jury and refuse to ever find them guilty, no matter what. But you do have to weigh it. Are you bringing a credible case, a very strong case, a case you should clearly win? And then will you go through the expense and time to do it? And I leave that up to Pam Bondi and her team to do. What I do see from the previous segment is, look, we had an open crime that made Watergate seem like a Monopoly board game by comparison. It was a one-time dirty trick that actually was, I'm talking about Watergate, was similar to previous dirty tricks done by the other party. This isn't. This is weaponizing national security. This is releasing information that hurt the credibility of America around the world. This is deliberately trying to adversely affect not just an election for one person, but one party creating an environment in which the other party could never win. And I think that's where democracy is at risk. You've got to stop and you've got to punish people who are not just going after the political opponent with a dirty trick. That goes on in politics, and I've seen it firsthand. But when they actually are trying to weaponize the whole system against a party, that is dangerous. And that's what really was done with the dossier. It wasn't just Trump. They were trying to essentially wipe out one party for their benefit.
Congressman, you are from California. You must know so well the tactics of Adam Schiff and his Sith in training, Eric Swalwell, when it comes to leaking classified information. And now the evidence that has been laid out by the FBI in black and white, according to the whistleblower reports, is damning and demonstrable. And you can also, of course, see them go and commit belligerently these crimes on national TV. There's plenty of supercuts of Adam Schiff doing this with regularity. And all of the evidence seems to line up perfectly with the whistleblower statements. What do you think should happen to these individuals? Obviously, these are criminal acts. And the Espionage Act does not have a statute of limitations that is 5 years. It is 10 years. And so is well within the statute of limitations, leaking classified information. What do you make of this?
Well, sort of in a parallel track of my experience bringing people of power, current or former, in front of my committees as chairman and so on, and the parallel of the FBI and the Department of Justice. Look, these individuals need to be brought in front of and placed under oath to answer questions. And if they answer them honestly or refuse to answer them, they're protected. But the world should know that. On the other hand, if they answer them in any false way, they need to be held accountable. As you know, very often it's not the crime, it's the false statement after, it's the cover-up. And in this case, can you imagine if either Eric Swalwell or Adam Schiff were brought to answer the questions about when you said this, what did you mean? How did you know it? Why are you saying today that you believe that when in fact here's evidence that you knew it wasn't true? If you're asked to answer those questions, you're probably going to take the fifth. And I think it would at least allow the public to know that they are hiding something. They're hiding their past wrongful activity. They may not be prosecutable in some cases, but they should be held accountable. They shouldn't be in high-ranking positions. You know, Eric Swalwell, if the Democrats retake the House, he'll probably be back on the Intel Committee. He might be the chairman. That is a scary thought.
Oof. Yes. I mean, I think he's currently on the Foreign Affairs Committee, a committee that you serve on, and something that Eric Swalwell has personal experience in, having foreign affairs.
Okay, there's a play on words that is too soon, perhaps. Look, he does a lot of things that I disagree with. One of them is he played fast and loose with people working who were not U.S. citizens in his office. Whether he had additional inappropriate activity isn't even the point. The point is that his actions in his official capacity, how vitriolic he is and self-righteous he is, really, I find it as humorous as you do when you look at his past mistakes, either sins of omission or deliberate. Having said that, look, these are both powerful individuals, Californians. My governor is currently trying to change a system that the voters voted for.
Yes.
In order to wipe out Republicans, take majority in the House, and seal the fate of a nation. So, they're just part of the team in California that doesn't seem to care about the Constitution.
Can you give me a very quick update on that? Apparently, there's going to be a big announcement today. How does that stand in California, the gerrymandering? It's already gerrymandered within an inch of its life, the state of California. But I guess you can squeeze blood from a stone? I don't know. Talk to me about it.
They probably can. The nonpartisan commission, which has been in place for 2 decades, most of 2 decades, I don't love it. I don't think it's perfect, but I can tell you this. It already gave us, with 40% of the voters in California being Republicans, only 17% of the representatives. They'd like to take that to zero. They'd like to take a situation in which essentially in a 60-40 state with the Democrats having control, they would like to have zero Republicans, and they could come pretty close with creative gerrymandering. And what that says to people, your listeners and viewers around the country is, should we have one man, one vote, and only one time? Should the winner take all and then change the system so the other side can never win? Or should the intent of our founding fathers be a back and forth, nobody ever being fully out of power and nobody ever having total power? The latter seems to be what has done well for us for 250 years. And I would hope that the voters in California see that and double down on what they already voted for, which was an independent commission.
Yes, but we all know what a complete joke that is, and we've all seen the maps
Wait
of places
a second,
like
Benny.
Illinois.
I'm going to
Yes,
come to the
please.
defense. Now, I'm going to come to the defense of my own state.
Please.
We recently had Prop 36. It didn't have much funding, and the governor had opposed bringing any kind of punishment back to people who roll in with a basket and steal $900 out of the grocery store or any other place, a liquor store in some cases. And you know what? The voters resoundingly voted no. They wanted to have punishment for crimes again in California. So I think voters, regardless of their political persuasion, see fair and unfair, right and wrong relatively well in my state. And I'm pretty confident that they're going to see it in this case.
Totally. California, according to the 2030 census, would lose a number of seats, something like around 4 or 5, I think, based on population reallocation. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're but for skating at the end, instead of losing 1 for the first time in its entire history, would have lost 3 or 4. And in the next census, thanks to the leadership of our governor, they will. I mean, the population is continuing to flee. The only place fleeing faster could be New York City.
Harmeet Dillon's joining in just a moment, so I'm sure she has plenty to say about that. She's from the Bay Area, and I know she has quite a few tales. You are on the Judiciary Committee. Just a final question here. You're on the Judiciary Committee. I'm not sure if that would have any type of oversight into what Adam Schiff or Eric Swalwell has done here, but I just want to nail down, you're in favor of them being brought in for questioning, potentially subpoenaed. This often doesn't happen to members of Congress, but you're in favor of this.
I'm in favor of putting them on the record on things they may have done that would not be covered by what we call speech and debate. There are certain things that we enjoy in immunity, just like the president, and those are constitutional. And I think, and Harmeet Dillon would be a good example of somebody who could tell you the details in the history. But there are times when they've done press, when you go on something like this show, you're not covered by speech and debate when you go out and make these public statements. Yes, so you've got to know when you should be held accountable for knowingly false statements. And as we pass off to my former state representative, to the Republican Party, and somebody who fought for civil rights, I couldn't be more happy that she's there, cutting down the total number of people doing the work, but doubling up the amount of work actually being done to fight questions of civil rights for people, including, quite frankly, conservatives sometimes on their First Amendment rights and so on. She's rebalancing the intent of a very powerful part of DOJ.
Yes, yes. Well, that's a perfect introduction. I don't even need to do the intro for our meet anymore. We look forward to playing the oldies. Congressman, we want you to cross-examine Hillary Clinton. We can't wait for that to happen. We'll be live when it does. And we say Godspeed to you. Everybody follow Daryl Issa. Hundreds of thousands of Americans already do. So why aren't you one of them? Get in there and give power to the people who are fighting for you. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Benny.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the great Harmeet Dillon, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Department of Justice. Harmeet, welcome to the show, and we apologize for the small technical error when we were in Washington, D.C. A few days ago.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's talk some civil rights questions. I suppose on the top of many people's minds, including mine, are the civil rights of D.C. residents who are the victims of horrendous crime rates that would put D.C. Above the murder rates of most failed states. And it's data that we've talked about regularly on this show. The vast preponderance of victims are black. The assailants are black. If you say Black Lives Matter, then of course you would want to get DC cleaned up. That would be your top priority, but it doesn't seem to be the priority of Democrats. Why?
Well, Benny, we're seeing this type of situation throughout the United States. There's these Soros prosecutors. They're not enforcing the laws. The law themselves have become weak because people have come to hate the police and love chaos. And so this is what you get. But DC has long been a bastion of a failed government, like Chicago and other places. We really failed the African-American community, like you said. It is spilling over all over. I was almost mugged twice this week, one after the other, in the middle of DC, about 3 blocks away from the White House just 2 days ago. And so, no one is safe in the city. And I am, for one, as a DC resident, while I'm serving in the Department of Justice, I'm grateful for the president stepping up. And so this is really a law enforcement issue. And so now, instead of the namby-pamby pulling of punches, you're actually going to have federal law enforcement take effect here. And that means this lunatic who threw a Subway sandwich, believe it or not, he was a DOJ contractor. This nut who threw a sandwich at law enforcement yesterday has been swiftly arrested and is going to be prosecuted. He's been fired, needless to say. And we're going to see that all over the place.
Okay, so 2 quick things that you said there that just blew my mind. One, you've only been in DC for a short while, just you could count the months, and you've already been victim of crimes?
Well, look, I stepped out of the way, but a homeless person rushed me 2 days ago as I was walking back to the office from an appointment. And a second one harassed me and tried to grab my water bottle. I mean, these are not like, I wasn't hurt, and I am from San Francisco too. I think you alluded to that in your prior hit. So my head is always on a swivel in these urban environments, but you can't walk a few blocks without being harassed and feel unsafe. And, as a woman, you're particularly sensitive to these issues. And so it's even the case in very nice neighborhoods. I live in a nice neighborhood, and I've driven past crime tape blocking off my, adjoining street twice. I pulled over in one instance to say, "What's going on here, officer?" "Oh, there was a murder right here." I don't know if it was a drive-by, stray bullets or whatever, in a very nice neighborhood where members of Congress and other people live. That's why I chose that neighborhood. So literally nothing is safe here in this city.
Nothing is safe here, even if you're a DOJ contractor. We have the video that you alluded to of, I'm not sure what it would be classified as, but I think if you throw anything at a police officer that could hurt or harm them, that would be considered assault at the very least. Here's the video. You're telling me that the man in the salmon-colored shirt here is a DOJ contractor?
Yes, the man in the salmon-colored shirt with the effete gesture there of throwing a Subway sandwich was a DOJ contractor. He is no longer.
Incredible. And can you give us any further circumstance here? He's just attacking the police out of what? Blind rage, out of anger that they
solidarity
exist?
Let me tell you something.
Yes.
Woke leftists all over the United States have come to believe the rhetoric that somehow, he's a white man, clearly they're oppressors and they need to somehow pay penance for that. So they engage in stupid stunts like this, and that could have hurt somebody. That could have hit an officer in the eye and wounded them, or worse. Or he could have had a projectile in there. So we have zero tolerance for that kind of nonsense. Nobody should feel comfortable attacking our law enforcement. And, he's a moron and he'll pay the price for that.
Wow. Just as a perfect demonstration of the rot inside of some of the law enforcement agencies and the Justice Department in Washington, D.C., just perfectly captured in that. Here's the headline. D.C. man charged with felony assault after hitting federal agent with Subway sandwich. Okay. I think that his bail will not be set at $5 footlong. I doubt in DC. But many have told us that we won't be able to get. You can put all the law enforcement you want on the streets of Washington, but if you don't have prosecutors and if you don't have a court system and judges who are willing to put criminals in prison, then it'll never be fixed. Do you see that as an unfixable problem, Harmeet?
No, nothing is an unfixable problem. We have the ultimate problem solver in the White House. I'm very confident that the president, working together with other law enforcement and leaders, is going to solve this problem. And the problem, however, is a national problem. And
Yes.
we're going to have to convince state and local officials that betraying their constituents is a bad idea. They haven't had to pay the price for that, but I think if you're a young child, African-American child in Chicago, your risk of getting shot in a drive-by shooting is unacceptable in America. I do think that's a civil rights violation. It's a civil rights issue, and there's an utter failure throughout the country. There's only a few of us here at the DOJ. We're doing our best. It's whack-a-mole all day here, but local, we have a system of federalism here, so local and state officials need to step up and keep their people safe or get voted out of office.
Yeah, there does seem to be quite a rash of this. Something that we have worked on is the poor woman that was laid out flat in Cincinnati, who was punched by a mob and then left for dead, and as everybody knows, may have well been killed, because when you hit the concrete and you're unconscious, that's how you get a brain hemorrhage and you die on the spot. Her name is Holly. We've raised nearly $1 million for her in a Give, Send, Go, and we're proud to have helped her. But nonetheless, this is something that is clearly is quite sparked in Cincinnati. The fact that there were no police officers there, the fact that she had to take an Uber to the hospital, and that the cops just sort of like brushed by it. It just seems like our cities have been abandoned to become hellscape kill zones for Americans, and we don't want that, obviously.
No.
How do you fight against this, Harmeet?
Well, so in this particular case, DOJ is looking at it, and so I'm not going to comment on it. We're in touch with Holly, and it's a very concerning situation. Again, this is the classic situation that I just described. There's a left-wing mayor. He doesn't believe in law enforcement. The local authorities similarly have a lax attitude towards these types of wilding incidents that occur regularly in Cincinnati. And, my gosh, I wouldn't have thought of Cincinnati as a place where you couldn't walk around safely after dark, yet we can all see the footage of what happened there. And there's a racial element to it, in my opinion. And so, we're going to be looking at that as the more facts roll in our investigation and see what we can do about it. But ultimately, the solution for this is the voters at the ballot box. And so that's why we're so motivated to make sure that our elections are secure as well, so that we have outcomes that are actually what the people want.
Yes. It does seem, the more that we read into the rap sheets of those who attacked Holly in Cincinnati, who is an unarmed middle-aged woman who's just trying to celebrate a birthday and was left for dead, literally left for dead, while people filmed and cheered it on. And that's something that I just can't get out of my mind. It's what inspired us to go try and raise some money for her, is because, everybody just stood around and laughed as she was left for dead. I mean, it's just like animal cruelty, truly. It's the banality of evil. Everyone was filming and nobody even called the cops.
Yeah,
and
that's a cultural issue. I think we have this TikTok culture. It is an international cultural problem that people are more interested in filming than engaging, and are really separated from their fellow humans. So I would love to see a culture where we go back to more community involvement, faith. These are how we connect with each other as human beings. And, people are getting divorced from that with this TikTok and online culture.
Yes. Some of the individual who led some of the assaults was out on bail for like a felony list as long as my arm. And they just, in Cincinnati, they just $400 bail. You just let them out.
And look, the bail system is a other scandal in our country. When I was in California in private practice, I got involved in this issue. Kamala Harris refused to defend an attack on California's bail system, money bail system, which, meaningfully kept criminals awaiting trial behind bars or some security for them to show up. And that's been eliminated in California for the most part at the state level now, thanks to law enforcement like the Kamala Harrises of the world, siding with the offenders and not the citizens. And so this is a problem, needs to be tackled nationally.
One story that we haven't talked about in a while, and I guess we'll go to trial a year from now, but it's Carmelo Anthony in Texas in the stabbing of Austin Metcalf. I wanted to get your take on this. Just have you been read in on this case? There also seems to be a racialized element here. The way that Carmelo Anthony has been treated, for instance, released, allowed to graduate, family takes the give, send, go money and moves into a mansion. It seems like just a insult, quite frankly, to law and justice, as you know, this young man is now dead, that he stabbed and killed for, well, I'm not even sure, absolutely nothing as far as I can tell, and according to all available footage, and it is captured on camera. Have you seen any of that footage? Do you intend on monitoring or looking into this case?
Well, look, I can't really comment about that, but I will tell you that our model, generally speaking, is the DOJ will get involved in cases where there is a federal element to it, where local authorities haven't properly taken care of it. So I'm going to suspend judgment until we see the outcome of this case. You know, when minors are involved, there are different legal standards, and you know, there are jurisdictional thresholds we have to meet in every case. But I'm looking at every case that I see. I'm online a lot, as you know, and constantly sending leads to my folks. We look at cases sometimes. This happened just today. We look at cases. I said, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Tell me what happened. We get a hold of the FBI, make sure they sit in on the interviews, and then the evidence comes back. And you know, my conclusion is that was a bad situation. It doesn't meet the thresholds for us to get involved under the federal statutes that we govern. So we are the Department of Justice, not the Department of Prosecution. So it is our duty as prosecutors to ensure that we are selecting the cases appropriately and doing justice. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Well, it's wonderful to hear, though, at the very least, because obviously justice for Americans means justice for all Americans, and it should show no favor. And you brought up something, and I know we're up against a hard out, but I'm so excited that you brought this up because it's something that has been a bee in our bonnet for a long time. And it's come forward into the news cycle, the defrauding of Americans and our voices and our vote. You brought up election security and how important it is that elections are run righteously and honestly and transparently. And with so much of the everything from the Russiagate and Obamagate scandals, I know we've had two guests on, the head of the Intel Committee and Daryl Issa were both on talking about how really what happened there was the will of the American people was defrauded, that the decision to elect Donald Trump was undermined by a very villainous, many would argue criminal cabal in Washington, D.C. to kneecap President Trump. And I have so many close friends that are in the administration 1 and in administration 2. And man, they would tell you, man, if you were to order Russian vodka or like get a Russian salad dressing, you know, on your salad at Morton's in D.C., you know, you could be indicted for that in term 1. That's how perilous this hoax was when launched against the Trump administration. It truly robbed the American people of their voice and their will. And it's a dark time in American history. How are you approaching this issue? Do you see it as a civil rights issue, the security of our elections?
Well, there's a couple of aspects to that. So first of all, we at the Civil Rights Division are charged under federal law with administering the federal election law statutes. They include, without limitation, Help America Vote Act, National Voter Registration Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Overseas and Military Voters Act. And there's a couple others. But that's at the very top of the pyramid. But the vast majority of our election laws are at the state level, you know, and the state legislatures are responsible for drafting those. During COVID, courts hijacked that function, governors hijacked that function, attorneys general hijacked that function. They shoved mail voting down everybody's throats. That's become permanent in many states without it being voted on by the voters. And so it's a convoluted system. So we much as I would love to fix all the voting situation in America, I can't because I don't have jurisdiction over that. But the second layer that you just talked about is also a civil rights issue. There is something called a conspiracy to violate rights. And this dates back to the era when slaves were newly freed and law enforcement officials conspired to deprive them of their civil rights to vote, to own property, to drive around, to be full Americans. And so that's how far back this right goes. And so today, and people talk about Watergate. Watergate was playing patty cakes. It was personal, petty corruption at a pretty small level compared to what you're just describing. A conspiracy to deprive the American people of their rightful choice for president. And I think we're naive if we think it stopped with that. I think there is an ongoing lack of concern for the rights of American citizens to select their own elected officials. In the case of the hatred for President Trump, combined with raw greed for power, has led to massive civil rights violations. Many of our friends, Benny, and I know people whose rights are personally violated. I mean, I won't call them out, but people who had to survive dawn raids. Lawyers in this building in the Department of Justice had to have their children rousted out of bed before dawn and be humiliated in front of them for nothing, for giving legal advice, sometimes leading to no outcome. Lawyers have been disbarred. This lawfare is ongoing. Friends of mine have been subjected to this. And all of us who took jobs in this administration who are lawyers understood that risk is there. And, that is why it is incredibly important that we put an end to it. And so I can tell you, the Attorney General, the President, and everyone who works here in this building is entirely 100% committed to ensuring that our elections are free and fair, and that elected officials, like people on, in House Judiciary, I'm not going to name them because there's investigations ongoing, but elected people in the Congress do not get to deprive us of our lawful voice ever again. There must be consequences, and we're committed to that.
Yes. Wonderful. I'm so glad that you, if I may, just very quick follow up to that, because you talked about the deprivation of rights in Reconstruction America, but the Supreme Court has taken up this race-based districting that has been used very effectively by like Eric Holder and Barack Obama in order to gerrymander, force legal gerrymandering through the courts. And the Supreme Court is now bringing it up. The article is on screen right here. Supreme Court considers ban on race-based voting districts. That seems like common sense to me. Does the Civil Rights Office have any take on this?
Well, of course, we're going to be expressing our view on this case. I've spoken about it quite a bit, and so you'll see some filings from our office in this case. But the big picture here is that the Voting Rights Act has been interpreted over decades to either allow or require race-based gerrymandering. And there was a time in our country in fairly recent history, 1950s and 60s included, where African Americans were denied the right to vote, and mainly in the South. This is 2025 today. It is not the case anymore. And so this is a vestige of a history, a shameful history that is long over in our country. And Justice Thomas eloquently wrote about this in his dissent from an opinion where this Supreme Court kicked the can down the road on this case. It'll now be heard in this next term. And he said, look, equal protection, which is a revered concept in our law, is at odds with Voting Rights Act jurisprudence that is race-based. And so this needs to be resolved by the Supreme Court. And so in this coming term, I hope it will be, and I hope we'll see an end to that. But to be clear, that's going to cause some challenges for people in both parties, because people who thought they had safe seats outside those racially gerrymandered districts are going to have to now compete fairly for everybody's vote, which I, as an American, think is a good thing. But it's going to upset the apple cart for some people. So I hope that happens. We don't know how the court's going to rule, but I think our direction is a good one, getting rid one by one of these racial barriers and these assumptions that people are going to vote a particular way because of their race. This itself is a racist concept. It's outdated. And in the case of Texas, it's not even true. There are many minorities being elected to the Republican Party in red states. It's a beautiful thing. We need to see more of it with open and fair elections. And so we at the DOJ will be weighing in on that.
We look forward to that, and we will read it live on the show. And we hope you'll join us again. The great Harmeet Dillon with the Civil Rights Department, who is doing just truly God's work. Harmeet, it's hard to really look at your career and say nothing other than you're here for the right time in the right place. You're just such a warrior. for justice in this nation. Everybody must follow Harmeet. Millions of Americans already do, and she's just such a tenacious fighter.
Can I add, Benny? Please follow my official account, which is
please.
AAG Dillon. I'd love to have more followers there. Thank you.
So she has 121,000 followers there. Everybody go follow the official account as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Harmeet Dillon. Godspeed.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Allio Capital. It's been a rowdy day. It's just back to back to back. Bam, 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 bam. But we were on time, right? With like a minute here or there. We were on time. Okay. And that's what we want to be on this program. We're working hard and we're working constantly. And I don't got time to sit there and like follow every TikTok of the market. I got to be able to trust the apps that I use. And thank God for modern technology. You can use great apps like Allio Capital that allows for you to have very smart trades, to make very smart financial moves while you're out building your own empire. Most of us are not bankers. Most of us do not do this professionally. Allio Capital, powered by AI, uses the information and news from around the world in order to make smart macro and micro decisions for your finances. I personally use this app. I have invested. My portfolio has done great. Ladies and gentlemen, you should get invested today. Download their app, the App Store or Google Play. Text my name, Benny, to 511-511. That's ALLIO Capital. Text Benny to 511-511. Download the Allio app. Text Benny to 511-511 today. Investing does involve risk, including potential loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee results. Consult with your financial professionals before making investment decisions. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, interesting times. Everybody is scared of the new release. And here it is. Shut it down. Bombshell FBI timeline exposes political interference in Clinton corruption probe. Oh, no. This from John Solomon, who's on a generational tear here from Just the News. This is John Solomon's site. FBI Director Kash Patel uncovered a bombshell memo written in 2017 chronicling the extensive political obstruction that career agents in 3 cities faced from their own bosses in the Obama Justice Department during the 2016 election as they probed whether Hillary Clinton engaged in a pay-to-play corruption scheme involving her family foundation. Shut it down. Then a Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates is quoted as demanding in the detailed timeline of political impediments that agents in New York City, Little Rock, Arkansas, and Washington, D.C. reported. The agents tried to get help of federal prosecutors to determine what crimes occurred while Hillary Clinton served as Secretary of State, most notably because at that time her family's foundation solicited hundreds of millions of dollars from foreign and U.S. interests with business before her department. The timeline, written by the DOJ lawyer assigned to the FBI under the Bureau Director James Comey, was recently secured by top aides to Patel with several corroborating internal emails that were obtained by Just the News. Together, they make clear that both the DOJ and the FBI Director Andy McCabe placed significant impediments in front of agents who believed that they had evidence to justify a public integrity criminal case. This is pretty, like, you all know how the Clinton Foundation worked. Clinton Foundation is the biggest money laundering scheme in the history of the world, the biggest influence peddling scheme in the history of our country. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. She was in charge of course, so many of these federal contracts, so much money. That's such a different time period, multiple wars ongoing, them trying to remake the world. And so in order to get Hillary Clinton to sign off on a policy or to do something, you would simply donate very handsomely to her foundation. It was a great scam. Bill Clinton was in charge of it, remember. He was a former president at the time. And Hillary Clinton would be sure to get your policies enacted. Now, how do we know about this? Well, there's so many examples, it's hard to count. But let's just go to Haiti, for instance. In Haiti, there was an earthquake. And there was a rebuilding after that earthquake where billions of American dollars flowed into Haiti. Should we do that? Well, that's a totally separate argument. Is it somehow our obligation to go rebuild the third world? No, it is not. All right, we can't even rebuild America. Does your road that you take to work have potholes? Okay, well, until all the potholes and all the bridges and everything is fixed here in this country for Americans, we shouldn't lift a pebble in Haiti for a Haitian. God, the brain rot of like left-wing globalism worldview. But anyway, the point is that according to the emails that were turned over, there was like a constant drive in the rebuilding of Haiti for contractors that knew the Clintons to get the contracts. And there was actually a line item listing a demarcation inside of the prospectus and files and bid wars that said, no, this contractor knows Bill Clinton. Give him the contract. This contractor knows Bill Clinton. Give him the contract. BC friend was what they would say. Bill Clinton's friend. Give him the contract. Give him the contract. So Hillary Clinton is doling out billions of dollars, and then internally they're like, well, give it to Bill's friend. And then what happens when Bill's friend gets it? He donates to the Clinton Foundation or just gives a bag of cash to Bill. That's how it worked. This has been reported out. We have the documents, and corporate media has covered it. It's so egregious. I think there was a CBS special on it. Why nobody went to prison for this, I don't know. But it looks like this was what they were investigating in 2016, and it was shut down. This is just one example of how that fraud worked. So, ladies and gentlemen, big news and very dangerous news for the Clintons. It seems like they are coming at them from all sides. Just like, whatever goes around comes around. If you were a Bill Clinton intern, boy, do you know that. Patel's discovery of the memo and related emails comes at a sensitive time for Attorney General Pam Bondi has approved the use of a strike force grand jury to investigate whether law enforcement and intelligence abuses over the last decade amounted to criminal conspiracy to protect Democrats like Clinton and Joe Biden while inflicting harm on Donald Trump and his followers. Officials told Just the News that DOJ also has secured potential operation from current and former prosecutors and agents who are willing to assist in any investigation into possible obstruction. Very, very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a wild time. Boy, and we have some breaking news here. Very, very interesting about the bulldozing actually happening. Bulldozing that we promised on this show. So here we go. And we do have some more intel, some breaking intel news here about James Clapper. As we get some of the good news loaded up. There's bulldozing going on in Washington, D.C. Got that, Media Matters? Got it? Clapper allegedly pushed to compromise normal steps to rush 2017 intelligence community assessment despite concerns from NSA director. The Intel Committee chairman was on just talking about this exactly. Former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper directed officials to compromise normal procedures to rush the 2017 politicized intelligence community assessment. Despite concerns, then Director of National Security Agency Mike Rogers, who allegedly said the team did not have enough time to review the intel and be absolutely confident that Russia was involved in the 2016 election. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard declassified the emails on Wednesday. Fox News Digital obtained the declassification records. Goodness. The leading figures in the Russia hoax have spent years deceiving the American people by presenting a manufactured and politicized assessments as credible intelligence, Gabbard told Fox News Digital. The email released today reinforces what we already exposed, the decision to compromise standards and violate protocols in the creation of the 2017 manufactured intelligence assessment. Clapper's own words confirm that complying with the order to manufacture intelligence was a team sport. Goodness. The email obtained by Fox News from Rogers was sent to then Director of National Intelligence Clapper and saying that, like, what the hell are you doing here? Why are you, like, how and why are you rushing this? It's going to be a wild fall, I hear. There is going to be a fall in the fall. Grand juries are currently impaneled looking into all of this. The feds have brought the case, and the masterminds behind the exposing of Russiagate are currently in charge of the government. Patriots in control. Kash Patel wrote the book on Russiagate. He's in charge of the FBI. Dan Bongino built a massive audience on exposing Russiagate, which was something that he did on a day-to-day basis in some of the darkest time periods of this scam. And Dan Bongino is in charge of that strike force looking into it. So hot damn, baby. I think we're going to be cooking. Get ready, get locked in with your Trump store swag, because we're going to be popping some popcorn. I don't think they have a popcorn maker. Maybe they do. I'm not sure. Maybe I can convince them to get a popcorn maker in the Trump store. Pop your popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. You could eat it out of some of the swag that they sent me. Like, for instance, sleek, structured hats that are bold and patriotic apparel, elegant drinkware, luxury home goods. What I'm saying is, like, the nice bowl. You could eat the popcorn out of a nice bowl. Popcorn popper, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe it's available at the Trump store. So much is available at the Trump store. Look at these incredible hats. Let's go to the hat collection, please. I've been to the Trump store so many times to get so much swag. Team members here know it. Go to the Trump was right hat. That's the one that I like the very most. Donald Trump was right about everything. Holy moly. Oh, and there's the black MAGA hat. These are the official MAGA hats, ladies and gentlemen, for every occasion. You won't find me wearing a hat. And you know, I'll tell you what, like, if I was going to be wearing one, you can catch me in a MAGA hat here and there, depending on the Trump rally that we're at. But boy, they had Trump was right about everything hats that looked so choice. And now I have some of them. And my producers were supposed to remind me when the next Trump ad was. I will bring them into the studio tomorrow, and we will give them away. So I'll bring them into the studio tomorrow, and we'll give them all away. Okay? That's what we're going to do. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you can go to the Trump store today, and you can snag all of this great swag. Go to trumpstore.com and use my code, Benny15. My goodness, they do have popcorn, do they? They have literal caramel popcorn. Okay. So we're going to be popping popcorn, and we'll wear our Trump was right about everything hat. Save 15%. Code Benny15 at checkout. 15% off your first order. That's trumpstore.com. One more time. Trumpstore.com. Shop smart. Shop American proud. All items made in America. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Bad days. I mean, I don't think that Bill and Hillary Clinton shop at the Trump store, but I don't know. If I were to send them a gift in prison, it probably would be from the Trump store. Jamie Comer, friend of the show, saying that the Clintons are the prime suspects in their probe into the Epstein case. Well, let's just come full circle here, shall we? Jamie Comer saying President Bill Clinton is the prime suspect in the House Oversight Committee's probe into Jeffrey Epstein's finances. Let's go.
American people want to know what happened on Epstein Island. I'm not going to drop this topic. You've subpoenaed Bill Clinton. He's going to fight you tooth and nail with the best lawyers in the country in some cases. Do you think Bill Clinton ever actually testifies? I think his date is what, October 12th?
Yes. I think we have a very good chance at this. I've never lost a subpoena battle. I've been chairman of that committee for a year and a half. This is the most challenging subpoena I've ever issued. But what makes this subpoena different is that the Democrats voted with Republicans. This is a bipartisan, congressionally approved subpoena. And I think that will hold a lot of weight in court. And you're absolutely right. He's going to have the best lawyers in America fighting us tooth and toenail on this. But the fact that this was voted on by Republicans and Democrats, because we're hearing from our constituents, everybody in America wants to know what went on at Epstein Island. And we've all heard reports that Bill Clinton was a frequent visitor there. So he's a prime suspect to be deposed by the House Oversight Committee. So hopefully we'll win that court battle with that subpoena and see President Clinton in October.
Are you from Kentucky? Do people from Kentucky say tooth and toenail? That's great. I'm going to use them to steal that. That's fantastic. I'm going to fight it tooth and toenail. I guess I live in the South. Debate in the chat. Is Florida the South? I know this is like a roaring debate. I know it's technically geographically the South, right? But is Florida the South? I know that people get very hot under the collar about this one. It is hot out here, man. It is humid today. Let's cool down with our verse of the day that will leave you chilled out, all right, and ready to rock into victory from Galatians 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. None of those I have. Against such things there is no law. But you try. You try your hardest. You get older and you get wiser and you do your best to just roll with it. You know that God's got your back. And if you know that God's got your back, then you don't have to live a life where you're all like, you know, where you're all strung out all the time. And you want the fruits of the Spirit. You want the fruits of your spirit to show. And what are those fruits? Let's read through them one more time. Love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. A lot of self-control with the Intel Committee chairman, Donald Trump. All these guys like knew that this was a scam. They had seen all the intelligence. They had seen all the original source documents, and they didn't say a word about it. I mean, it's amazing. I wouldn't have that kind of self-control, but, you know, I'm not in an elected office and never will be. But here's what I want to focus on real quick, because if you're someone who says prayers, and I am somebody who says prayers, because I am a fallen and failed man, and I'll constantly lock in with my God, I want you to focus on one word right there, peace. Tomorrow we will be live for President Trump. Approximately 3 p.m. We'll have our normal show, but approximately 3 p.m. we'll be live as President Trump meets Vladimir Putin. He'll do it live on an American Air Force base in Alaska. Peace. Peace. Let's pray for that, please. Let's pray for that. President Trump didn't start this war, but hot damn, he may end it. We hope for that. Pray for peace. And all of the others, all of the others, of course, are good as you march off into life. And if you practice them all, although it becomes quite impossible as you go through the day, but you should aspire to it, and you should pray for the ability to practice all of those fruits of the Spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that you'll have victory, and you'll have victory through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So onward to that victory. Remember, in the end, we win. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
Subway $5 footlongs famous. So to thank you, we're making any regular footlong a $5 footlong. Get that? Any regular footlong, piled high with flavor, $5.
We're here maybe to give you the platform to apologize to the First Lady for your statements that you made about her possible connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
That. That's not going to happen.
The truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies. Watch the truth cascade with the warrior's heart. This man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies. Watch the truth cascade with the warrior's heart. This man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.